Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Healthy Enterprise Podcast. Thank you for joining me again if this is your return visit. And if it's your first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy this episode. Today, I'm going to be talking to Bret Larsen. This guy is a 3-time founder and CEO with a serious track record in building B2B software companies. His ventures have been backed by the likes of Goldman Sachs, and not to mention consistent spots in the Inc. 5000 and Deloitte Fast 500. He's a 2-time Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist, a Titan CEO, and one of the top 50 CEOs in healthcare tech. Should I go on? On top of that, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and he's going to share his entrepreneurial story with us and bring us up to speed with his newest venture, Chief, an AI predictive operations platform. So let's have a chat with Bret. So, Bret, thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to have you on this episode, and so we can get to know a little bit about you. You've done a lot in your career thus far. So why don't you start with giving us an introduction to you and what you've been doing, and just enlighten us with who Bret Larsen is.
Yeah. So my background educationally is in accounting and marketing. I went to Arizona State University. I am for better or worse, an entrepreneur, founder. Like I build. I'm happiest when I'm building something. And it seems like I try to choose the most difficult problems to try to tackle. I wish there was something. I called my mom when I decided to do it again, and I was like, "Hey, did you not hold me enough or too much? Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? Why am I doing this again?
Why am I like this?"
But so I started my first company and sold it during my undergrad program at ASU, small e-commerce business, direct to consumer. I knew I wanted to do it again. And because of some things I'd run into, narrowed it down to software. And really what I was looking for was being able to source and fulfill customer demand immediately, not have to carry inventory, higher margins. And I didn't know anything about software. This was 2012. So I took a position with a company startup in North Scottsdale, Arizona, called Stat Health Services. And they offered a product called Stat Doctors. And it was, if the audience is familiar with Teladoc or Amwell's benefit offerings, we were doing that exact same thing. And at the time, Uber was just starting to gain a lot of traction from a word of mouth perspective. Mm-hmm. And so when we'd pitched, I was employee number 6, marketing manager. My job was to create awareness for members who had access to our 24/7, 365 physician services through our platform. And so when we go pitch it to investors, the analog we'd always use is like, we're Uberizing healthcare. And at the time, there was a lot of noise from the taxi cab industry about the disruption Uber was introducing, trying to block them from airports and municipalities and other places. And the thought I had in that experience was, if we're the Uber of healthcare, what's the analog? Like, what industry we're disrupting where there is an opportunity for them to accelerate innovation and save themselves, frankly, and create the better experience themselves. Because I firmly believe if the taxi cab industry had created better access to their services, a better user experience, that they probably wouldn't be in the situation they're in today. Maybe not as quickly anyway.
Yeah.
So that was where the idea for eVisit was born, which the next company I started. And eVisit, rather than being the medical services piece, was the platform infrastructure piece. So we built a telemedicine platform. We market, we sell a telemedicine platform that simplifies healthcare delivery for enterprise health systems. So if you did a video visit with your doctor during the pandemic, you probably used eVisit and didn't know it if you were based here in the US. They white label our technology.
Behind the scenes,
The largest health systems in the country, Advent, Ascension, Banner Health, we were the backbone infrastructure for them. And it was an incredible experience, wild journey. And then I I stepped into the executive chairman role January of 2023. And the plan was to take 4 or 5 years off. And like 9 months in, my wife pulled me aside gently and said, "You can't be here anymore. At least not before 5 o'clock in the evening." I think she could see I just wasn't super fulfilled. I was the only time I felt fulfilled was when I was with my family, but I just felt like I wasn't having impact. And so
Right.
she gave me the right push, and I went and started looking at what to build next. And that's where Chief was born. And so this new company, Chief, it's a predictive operations platform. So if you or the audience have seen the movie Minority Report.
I was just going to say that Minority Report.
It's like Minority Report for your business. So it's
Nice.
designed. It's a machine learning platform that ingests all of your business databases, CRM, ticketing systems, accounting systems, and uses the historical data to predict future outcomes and what you can do about them. So identifies like the leading indicators for any given outcome, and can say, hey, this, like, you're going to miss your sales number in Q4, but if you do these things today, you can actually change that outcome. Do you want to do it? And so we're in the early stages of getting that in place. There's definitely application in healthcare and higher ed, but our main focus is other software companies today.
Wow.
So that's like a big arc. I'm happy I can dive in deeper on any single one of those areas.
For sure. Before we go into that, I was going to say, have you ever met Dr. Jay Sanders?
That name sounds so familiar.
So he's like he was labeled the father of telemedicine. So
Okay.
I did a podcast with him.
Oh, cool.
He was one of the earlier ones. Very cool guy. You got to listen to his podcast, or at least look him up. But
yeah,
Dr. Jay Anderson, he was like it was actually his boss that was actually started it in Boston, telemedicine.
Okay.
They bought 2 black and white television cameras, and the doctor was just, he tells the story way better than I do, but the doctor was really trying to avoid having to come to Boston for rush hour. So he invested
more
in
convenience than.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the sort of like the first of it. And then he retired and then handed the baton to Dr. Sanders and said, it's all yours. You got to keep going. And that was like in 1969. And so he did. He kept working on it, and then of course it exploded after COVID, right? But anyway, really cool guy. You got to check him out. It's really nice person and a great storyteller too. So, okay, so now where did this entrepreneurial drive in you come from? Like, because you've been doing it for so long. Like, you started out of the gate very young. Like, where do you think that came from? And plus, you also had science in your education too.
My mother.
Okay.
I remember like the first business I started was selling produce out of our family garden, and then like shortly thereafter, I think my mom went to Costco and bought a whole bunch of like bulk candy and taught me how to run a P&L and to manage a balance sheet. And her father, World War II vet, came home from the war, worked for Bell South till he retired, but then went to the library, got a book on roofing, built a multi-million-dollar roofing, I don't say empire, but enterprise on the East Coast. And then retired at 85 because my grandmother wouldn't let him get on the roof any longer, and then died at 86. Like, he died in his boots. So I think it's probably in my DNA somewhere, but at the core of it, I've learned, like, what gets me up in the morning is seeing impact, like seeing something I've built be valued or create value for a market or a customer. Or my proudest moments at eVisit were when I'd meet someone who had my product in their pocket, and there's no reason I should have met them. Right. Like, it was even more exciting when it was outside of my market or my network. And knowing that because the team and I had built something, like, they had it to use. And so it's always been a piece. As a kid, I loved playing with Legos. Like, I've always really enjoyed the creative process. So,
and then what was it that drew you to healthcare? Was there something, a moment or a pivotal moment or something that kind of like threw you in there?
When I graduated from ASU, I dual majored accounting and marketing.
Right.
And there were two industries I said I'd never work in. The
Of
first was
course.
first was education, and the second was healthcare.
Healthcare. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but I think what drew me there was it's interesting. Both those markets tend to be laggards when it comes to technology adoption. I think for different reasons. Like healthcare is a laggard due to the risk of innovation, and the whole mantra is do no harm. And so that they, by nature, that need to be very careful about how they innovate.
Yeah. Hence why it's such a slow moving beast too.
Yeah, especially in the enterprise space. But I think what drew me there was what I perceived as an incredible opportunity, and the like an industry that is a laggard and could be innovated in. That was exciting to me. The idea that you could take a group that hadn't yet adopted some of this innovation and change the way. I mean, at the end of the day, the big vision at eVisit is to fundamentally shift the way that healthcare is delivered.
Right.
So,
and I'm sure it was so easily adopted, and you didn't have a whole lot of pushback at all.
Never.
Right?
No, it was. I mean, straight up and to the right. No, I honestly, I can dive into that if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because both, I mean, you said education and healthcare, both which are very bureaucratic and very heavy in administration, so which tends to be a common complaint about particularly healthcare, is how heavy it is in administration, and how that's where a lot of things slow down, right? When you're going through regulatory processes and trials and all that kind of stuff. Like that's where it really starts to really slow down.
Yeah, it's. I think the key piece to that is as you look at healthcare, there is that. It's not an aversion to innovate. I think they actually genuinely want to. But then how? So if you look, you asked, it just all worked. I started the business in the end of 2014. I left actually an ed tech company that I had joined as VP of marketing while I waited out my non-compete. And we actually grew really, really quickly at first, but it was in small provider practices. And frankly, the product we built was probably far too robust for what they needed. And so as we started looking at the data, we realized that we needed to move up market to improve retention numbers. And so we did. At the time, when you'd go pitch a large health system, the topic of telemedicine was always on their 5 to 7 year roadmap. Perpetually. Right. Yeah, it's on a strategic roadmap. We're going to do that in the next 5 to 7 years. And
every 5 to 7 years, they added it back onto the list. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And part of it was, I think the payment systems in the U.S. weren't set up. There were like the parity laws were spotty state by state. So there weren't a lot of the right incentives that were aligning it. And depending on what health system you were talking to and what their payer mix was, and there were a lot of business elements that impacted the viability of that as a business model. But at the end of 2019, we did a small extension on a capital raise with existing investors, an inside round, and my fellow board member and lead investor came to me. He's like, "Bret, I love you, right?" And I was like, oh goodness, no good conversation starts out this way.
Nothing comes, it's not you.
Actually, I do know he loved me. Like we had grown very, very close. And I was like, yes. And he's like, there's no more money. He's like, 2020, you get profitable, you sell the business or you're out of business. Like we've deployed all the reserves. This is it. And so in tandem, we had also stopped, my wife and I had stopped taking a salary from eVisit at the beginning of November of that year. And I started eVisit when I was 28. So at this point I was 32, 34. Like I had no nest egg. I don't have a trust. I had $100,000 in credit card debt that I had used to start eVisit, and like $5,000 in our savings account. And we had 2 kids. No, we had 3. We had 3 kids at that time.
You forgot one.
And my kids got Christmas because the board gave me permission to use our Amex Gold points on Amazon.
Wow.
And
wow,
I've never borrowed money from my parents. This is getting super personal. Maybe you don't want to go down this rabbit hole.
No, this is exactly right. I mean, people, people they don't want to hear about your misery, but they like to hear that you had some obstacles to overcome,
yeah.
right?
So
I mean, this is real. This is real.
Yeah.
Like it's not made up, you're not,
No.
and that's not your car behind you, by the way, on the wall. It's your
Yeah.
dream car. But I mean, you got to know that people have to know where people went through to see where, cause they may be where you're at.
Well,
they may be where you were at then, right now, going,
for me,
this is what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. For me, the 2 most important qualities in a founder entrepreneur is pain tolerance and the ability to learn. If you can navigate through really hard, painful things and learn, you and stay alive long enough, you'll get lucky, or you'll find an opportunity that'll work out. But so I've never borrowed money from my parents. I called my father and asked if because I was trying to figure out how am I going to pay my mortgage for the next 6 months, like at least. And I asked him if they could lend us money, and he was like, "We could do that. How much do you need?" And I told him, he's like, "Yeah, we can make that work." And I was like, "I don't know. We don't need it yet. I just need to know. I'm trying to figure out what my options are." And then the very next day in the mail, I got the banks used to send around those blank checks on unused lines of credit. It was like, "Hey, consolidate your debt, no interest for 18 months." So I got a check in the mail.
I've used a few of those.
The next day, I wrote myself a check for $25,000 and I put it in our savings account. And that is how we paid our bills for the following 4 or 5 months. And so moving into 2020, the pandemic hit. We had closed Banner Health as a customer in December 31st of 2019, which is the only reason the investors at the time did an extension on the round, because we started showing like, hey, there's opportunity here.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm convinced that's the only reason they did it. And the original contract was smaller, but the CIO of Banner, who I became pretty close with through the pandemic, she called and she's like, "Hey, are you following this COVID thing?" And I was like, no, I don't watch the news. Yeah, because it's depressing, and I have enough head game I'm trying to figure out. I was like, yeah, what are you thinking about it? And she said, how hard would it be? The original scope for Banner was 300 physicians in urgent care. And she's like, how hard would it be to get new, like a bunch more doctors on? And I was like, well, how many are you thinking? And she's like, 4,000. And I said, how quickly? And she's like, tomorrow. And I said, we're in the middle of a 90-day implementation cycle with them, right? To configure the platform, to train the physicians, to train the support staff, to train the admins. And I said, let me call my team. This was a Friday. Called the team. They're like, we could make it happen, not overnight, but give us 5 days. And I said, okay. So I called Deanna back and I said, yeah, we can do it. She's like, okay, get it done. We didn't even speaking about renegotiating the contract. She's like, we'll figure that out. But it was like, this is going to be big in not a great way. So I hung up, and Saturday morning she calls back. It's never a good sign when a customer calls you on a Saturday, especially not the CIO of a $27 billion IDN. So I pick up the phone and I'm like, great, the pandemic's not going to be a thing. And
they found a cure. So
she's like, she said, just kidding. And I was like, okay. And she's like, we need 7,000 doctors live tomorrow. Right. And I said, okay. So we did it. It took us, I think it took us 9 days. We told her that. She's like, fine, no training, configured an entirely new workflow. The scale we saw, it was video or visit volume grew by like 76 times over the course of 14 days. And so we had to refactor the entire platform twice because we kept thinking we'd built enough headroom in the servers. We're cloud-based, but And I remember from March, it was the 15th or 16th, because it was right on my wife's birthday, through end of June, it was 100+ hour work weeks. I work a lot anyway because I enjoy what I do, but usually not more than 60, 70 hours a week. That's not a badge of pride. I don't have
And
hobbies.
not all your people, like
No,
all your
wait,
people
and
were working
we
those
were a team
hours
of
too, probably.
25. So we grew that
Wow.
year like 1,200%. Our team went
Wow.
from 25 to 80, 85, all remote. It was, but the coolest part was for the previous 4 years, 5 years, I'd been painting a vision to the team that we were going to fundamentally change the way that care was delivered, that at some point their friends and family would have easier access to care because of the tools we were building, because of the solutions we were providing. The great thing about healthcare is that there's such a strong social mission. And
Yeah.
so to finally
Yeah.
see the team see the payoff for the work
Mm-hmm.
we'd been doing around, like, hey, we're literally saving lives at this point, was such a cool experience. But yeah, so we just went on a tear.
Wow.
We grew a ton that year. It was a lot of, it was really cool to be in a spot to help in like a global emergency.
And at the same time, your company is now exploding, whereas other companies are like completely being crushed by this pandemic too. So what an interesting sort of intersection for you, for your team.
Yeah.
Everybody was working, whereas other people were, and everyone was working remote, whereas everyone else was being like dispersed, go home, go to work and
Yeah.
home. And like, what an interesting series of events for you
It
for that
was,
to
it was wild. It was, I mean, we were on the phone 3 a.m. in the morning with the city of New York. It was just like anyone and everyone.
wow.
It was, you're trying to manage and navigate. I mean, there was a time, because we had 2 support people before the pandemic started, where we had to figure out whose calls to answer, or like we had everyone answering support calls, and on top of everything else they had to do. It was a crazy, crazy experience.
So there's nothing to prepare anyone for that, in that state. One day you wake up and you're just worrying about how this is going to end up, and money problems, and no more investors. That's it. And then the next thing you know, your company is exploding, and that brings on a whole new set of concerns and stresses. And so how did you manage that, and what did you draw from in order to kind of bridge that growth spurt, because that's an extraordinary growth spurt.
Um, Honestly, that growth. How did I manage the almost? Here's what most people don't recognize when they hear the story after the fact. When it works out, the assumption you make is, oh, well, you just had so much conviction, you knew it was going to work. Like, you were
Mm-hmm.
pushing through it. And the thing is, you don't. You may, even if you say you do, there's this weight sitting in, like, on your chest, where you're like, I've made commitments to investors. I have people that work at the company that rely on this to support their families. I've got a family I'm supporting. I raised money from my parents, from my in-laws, from other friends and family prior to the institutional money coming in. Like, there's an incredible amount of pressure that
Yeah.
comes with that. The growth through COVID was everything I had hoped to architect in a business,
Right.
right? Like, we saw some really good growth the first couple of years, and then, like, the fundamental shift, we plateaued 2 years in, because we started shifting from anyone who had a credit card and could afford $99 a month to more mid-market. And so you saw our average revenue per account from 2017 to 2019 shift from, like, it was like $4,600 a year at the end of 2017. By the end of 2019, it was $53,000 a year. And so our
Wow.
revenue growth didn't look good. We had grown, but the
Mm-hmm.
health of the customer is fundamentally better.
Right.
And then, I mean, the average revenue per account today is just off the charts, because we moved from mid-market into enterprise.
Right.
So everything, all the growth that occurred was everything I'd hoped to create. Like, I wanted to be white knuckling it because of that growth. In my mind, startups die from starvation or indigestion. And And we went from
That's a good
starving,
phrase. Yeah.
we went from starving to like inundated. We literally
Yeah.
couldn't answer all the sales calls we were getting. And so it's navigating that part was easy, frankly. Navigating the part of being on the brink of death constantly for 2 years. And there was other stuff going on with like previous partners that was emotionally just the most difficult thing I've ever experienced, right? It was just like very, very, that part, the near death experience, and someone who's dead set on assassinating your character for 36 months. That was hard. So I think going through that was like, I could do this all day. Like the growth side, I could do this all day long.
You never know what you're capable of until you're presented with those kinds of situations,
Funny,
right?
when things started to get hard, my father pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, Bret, anyone can start a business and give themselves the title of CEO." He's like, "By the time you're done, you will be the CEO." And I didn't know what he meant. And then getting through it, it was like, oh, I get it now. Like,
Now I know.
No one should ever want this job.
Because everything falls back on you.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then being the founder too, you also have this other layer of this, it's your baby too, right? When you're just a CEO, not just a CEO, but when you're the CEO and not the founder, it's got its own set of stresses, and it's got all those, well, it's all on you and you're responsible, you're accountable for everything. But when you add that other layer of being the founder, now you've also got this sort of real personal sort of vision and passion for seeing it actually happen, which adds another layer of stress, doesn't it?
For sure. Well, and people like team members, investors, customers, like they're not just buying the product, they're buying you. Right? Because as the founder, you're setting a vision and you're selling that vision. You're selling your ability to connect to that and deliver a certain outcome. So it's extremely personal. It's and it's very, very lonely. I had great team members. I had incredible team members, but there's certain rocks that only you get to carry. It's the most amazing growth platform, personal growth platform.
Yeah.
That you'll ever experience.
What kind of stuff did you tap into? Did you have a couple of mentors, or did you just focus on, learning, or just what did you do to kind of build that side of your leadership skills?
That's a great question. And before I lean into that, I'll say that what I didn't realize when I started was the skill set I think there are fundamentally 4 different skill sets in business, right? There's building, managing, working, and scaling. And each of them are very different. And the skill sets required as a founder CEO from 0 to 1 million are extremely different than like 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 20 to 100, right? They're like as a founder, the most difficult part, or as a CEO founder, the most difficult. And I think a lot of the reason most people don't make it, they start to hit growth ceilings is because they stop being able to iterate their skill set and or learn or evolve, or they don't want to, because it's like, I enjoy this piece. I'm a builder and I can go from 0 to 10, and that requires about 25 to 50 people. And I can still get my arms around that. But the skill set changes from building to leading. And so what I did, and I think there were a few things that forced me into it, kicking and screaming. But I hired an executive coach about 2 years in. One of my board members was like, "Have you ever thought about doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know where to find one." So he introduced me to a few. So I've had an executive coach consistently since that point. You want to get really vulnerable, go do a 360 review with your team. I remember getting the results the first time, be like, "That's not true." And then seeing it like 7 or 8 times and be like, okay, well, if it may not be true, but it's at least perception, and perception is reality. So like just having, again, the CEO role is a very lonely one, and having there are certain things you must go to your board about. There are certain things your team must know to execute well. There are certain things you can't take to your team because it's just a distraction. There's nothing they can do about it, and it doesn't help the business. So you shouldn't take it to them. There are certain things moments of self-doubt or, questions that we all have. If anyone tells you they don't, they're lying.
They're lying.
That you
100%.
can't take to your board, or you
No.
undermine their confidence and like their ability to help you. You don't need to give them more question marks. There's enough of those without you adding to them. And I'll say there are certain things you must go to your board about, right? Like if there's some things happening in the business that fundamentally threaten the business, you must take that to them, and it's your responsibility to. But having a party that is interested in your growth, not the business's growth, is such a big unlock. If I were on the institutional investor side, there are two things I've never seen anyone do, three actually, that I would require. The first is you could not increase burn for 6 months post investment unless you could prove that there was a significant ROI. You could maintain burn, but you couldn't increase burn 6 months for at least 6 months post investment. I would, in as part of my due diligence, I'd spend time with the executive founder CEO's spouse or significant other, because if at any point my wife had told me she was done and I had to make a choice between the business or my family, there wouldn't have been a hesitation. It would have been my family. Yeah. So the reason eVisit was successful is because Bree was there every single step of the way.
Yeah, it's your support.
She never doubted, right? And then the third is they would have to get a coach, and it wouldn't be someone I would introduce. It's a very personal relationship, but the ability to go to someone whose motivation is your growth and not the business's unlocks crazy growth for the business, because there is a direct correlation to a founder's ability to grow themselves and the businesses. If you look at any business that's stalled, I promise you 9 times out of 10, you'll find that the founder has hit a ceiling. The business still has lots of potential, most likely, but the founder has hit a ceiling that they need to work out and through. And I was fortunate that I had a community around me that helped introduce those things, but also a team that was super patient with me and supportive.
Yeah, there's probably a point, like you said, with the founder and the CEO, there's a point where you hit that ceiling and there may be a bit of an identity crisis going on, because there are some, I've heard a lot of people make comment about that at some point, particularly in science, actually, I'll use that as an example, is that founders are typically scientists in some of the more biotech sort of areas. And they only have their passion, or what they are doing is the science. And then they actually get pulled into this business aspect, which really sort of separates them. It becomes you're trying to have two identities. You're trying to be a business person and a science person. And I think you described it. It's like at some point you have to decide, I'm going to stay the scientist, and I'm going to find someone else to be the business head, because I'm not serving anybody by trying to do something that's not what I want to do. And that's not what I'm passionate about. To stay in the lane that I'm in and build a team around me, which really depends on being able to trust others in those roles. And that's a big step for a lot of founders, I think.
Well, I think as you're building a team, the goal is, the way I'd articulate it to my team was, hey, you should be hiring people that are so good it kind of scares you. Like they need to be culturally aligned. You can't be wondering whether or not they're out for your job.
For sure,
But you should hire them with them having your job in mind. Like, could this person replace me? Because I can't do better work until someone can do the work I'm doing. And so like, and that's a really uncomfortable place to be. Like the idea of, the insecurities I had was like, why would someone like that be willing to work for me? As a 20-year-old kid, what do I have to offer? And the reality is that asset that is your vision, like your ability to articulate and identify, and it's not an asset that is easy to come by. It's actually a skill set that I think is undervalued, because it's a softer skill set where it's like, I have this vision, I can so clearly see, and your job is this, as you become a CEO past a founder, your job is to articulate that vision so clearly that people can't not understand it. And you're doing your job when you start to repeat what it looks like, and people roll their eyes, or they can finish your sentence, right? It's finally you're like, okay,
There he
like we're
goes
all
again.
looking at the same place, and
Right.
and then your job is to just create the guardrails. How do you make sure that they're staying within the bounds of what's possible and where you need to get to?
Yeah, that's a great description. I like that. Yeah. So now fast forward, you've that was a great story about eVisit hitting the when you hit the pandemic. That's crazy. So then now eVisit, you're still on the board with them. You're still involved. You're still participating, and that's going along. And now Chief is now rolling along. So bring us up to speed to today, where Chief is at, and dig into that a little bit more. How what made you think of that model of a SaaS?
So when I told you about 9 months, I stepped into the executive chairman role in January of 23. Between the pandemic, we raised a couple more rounds of capital. The last round was led by Goldman Sachs, their growth equity group. Incredible partners. Like if you're building a business and you have the opportunity to work with Goldman, 100% take it. Like what, regardless of what the competing terms are, those individuals go to work and they can open doors that like almost no one else can. They're really just easy to work with, right? They treat you like partners. They're great. And I'm not being paid for this endorsement.
This is not an endorsement. They're not a sponsor of this episode. No. At what point do you know that that's the kind of that when you need to approach a team like that?
They actually approached us.
Oh, really?
We went out to raise our Series B, and it was actually, we closed our Series A in September of 2020. And in our first board meeting that fall, during that time, Amwell, who was our biggest competitor, went public, and they had like $1 billion of cash on their balance sheet. And in our first board meeting, I said we'd grown 1,200% that year, and I said we should go raise another round of capital. And they all kind of looked at me like, we just raised, like we had more cash on the balance sheet than we'd ever had. In fact, we were profitable in Q1 and Q2 of the following year, and we had more cash on the balance sheet the day before we closed the Goldman round than we had the day after we closed the A round.
Holy cow.
And so they all looked at me, and I was like, I kind of laid the story out. I was like, Amwell has $1 billion. We're not losing deals to them. We should be putting our foot on the gas. And so in the B round process that I was running, Goldman came to us, and it was near the tail end. I was like, hey, if you guys can move fast, you're welcome to lean in on this, but otherwise we're almost done. And they're like, we can move fast. So it was like a week or two before they gave us a term sheet. And it was really just, for me, as I look at the investors we raised money from, there are a few in there that are just phenomenal, and a couple that are mediocre at best. And I won't say who, because I still work with them. But the difference is the phenomenal ones show up like partners. Like when there is a chance to take advantage, they don't. When you're trying to work through something, they don't kick you. They treat you like a peer, not an employee. And as a CEO, you are an employee, but as a board member, you're a partner. So it's a fine balance, right? And so it was, as I got to know the team, I think part of it was their minority growth equity group. So they made a minority investment, but the Series B was a $45 million round. At the time, it was the largest B round that had ever been raised in Arizona by a venture-backed startup. And they just, the way they approached the conversation was as partners, not as, and I think it was so different from when I thought of Goldman in my head, it was so different from what the image in my head was, which was not informed by anything, just, Goldman Sachs. And so I think that was part of it. It was like, wow, this is quite different. They're much faster, flexible, hip, interested, engaged,
invested. Yeah.
They understand the market really, really well. And the other element was with our customer base, other blue chip venture capital firms, their brands are big in startups. but very few of our health system customers would hear one of their names and be like, oh, we know exactly who they are. Everyone knows who Goldman is. And so that actually gave us gave our customers a lot of confidence that we're a Goldman backed company. Goldman is underwriting a lot of their retirement, accounts and things like that. So that was the calculus as I thought about who to work with and what partners to take on. But so January 23, I promoted my president to CEO and stepped into the chairman role. I thought I think I told you this before we started recording, 5 years off was the plan. Yeah. I still have a young family. My oldest is 12. My youngest is 3. We've got 4. And like 9 months in, my wife was like, hey, I love you. You can't be here anymore. You can come home after work, but you need to go. So I interviewed for CEO roles. And every time I got close to an offer, I thought, I don't want another job. Like I will start with a job with X amount of employees on day one. That doesn't sound fun. And so I just started, late 2023, 2024, generative AI started becoming much more like that was the hot topic.
Yeah.
And the big question I actually called my coach just after I'd gone on a couple of international trips, got home. I called my coach. I was like, I think I'm depressed. And he was like, you're not depressed. You're languishing. And I was like, I don't know what that means. He sent me an HBS article I read, and I called him back. I was like, okay, I'm languishing. What do I do about it? He's
just a nicer word.
He was like, get back to work. And I realized I wasn't being challenged. I didn't, I had restored a couple of other dream cars that I had always wanted to work on. I did all these things and just wasn't finding a whole lot of purpose. And so I went and started interviewing senior operators at growth stage software companies. And the question I was asking that I was trying to get answered is, what does it look like to operationalize generative AI? What does it look like to actually put it to work? Not go work with it, but to get it to go work for you.
Right. To get it to use it as a tool to do something you want it to do. Yeah. Okay.
And as I interviewed more and more of them, a lot of CFOs, a lot of CEOs, probably combined, it was over 100 of these interviews. The recurring theme and one of the pain points that was resurfaced for me was getting timely access to data to make decisions is incredibly painful. And even worse, those are usually reactive inquiries. A problem, something has happened and you're trying to figure out why and what to do about it. And as I reverse engineered the process we'd go through at eVisit, it was like every time I had it, there's usually 4 questions that come with anything that happens data-wise. What happened, which is usually pretty clear if you're managing by the data. It's like, oh, our pipeline dropped, our utilization went up, our whatever. The next question is, why did it happen? The question after that's what's going to happen next. And then the 4th question is, what will happen if? And so what I found was the answer to the next 3 questions get progressively more expensive. It'll take, if you ask one of those 3 questions, it'll take one of your data analysts 3 to 4 weeks and $6,000 to $8,000, depending on how you compensate them. And that's just the hard costs for them. That doesn't count all the other people who are involved in that process.
Right.
And so I thought, well, what if you could train AI to proactively surface these things so you know what's going to happen? And this all came out through these interviews. It was like, how do you access data? What tools do you use? What works? What doesn't work? How much do you spend? So it was really like an evolutionary process where I just kept asking more questions to try to figure out, like, how do you unlock the asset that is your operating data in a way that puts it to work for you, that creates simplicity.
How are you getting these people to answer these questions for you?
Like, how do I get them on the phone, or how
are you how are you engaging with these people to ask them these questions? These are pretty specific questions, and wouldn't they be like, what are you up to?
I told them, like, I was like, hey, I'm like, hey,
you're just doing research.
I'm a founder CEO. I'm building something again. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm building it for you. Cause I narrowed it down. Like, I want to build for growth stage B2B senior operators. Like those are my people. No one joins a software company who isn't growth oriented. No one starts, few of us start software companies. We're like, you know what? I'd love to just pay my mortgage every month. That'd be great. Right. Like they're there to create significant impact. And anyone who tells you it's about the money is half lying, because if it was just about the money, they'd choose a different occupation. They'd go be a banker or a lawyer or an attorney. Like there are far better ways to create wealth than starting software companies or any company, because the pain associated is significant. It's really like there are better, easier ways. If that's why you're doing it, do something else. And so my thought was like, these are my people. I want to work with people who move fast, who can think fast, who make quick decisions. So that's how I pitched them. I just said, hey, I'm building something. I did this before. I know what it's like to be where you're at. I'm doing it again, and I'm going to build it for you. And I'd love to spend 30, 45 minutes just picking your brain on your day-to-day experience across like how you operate.
That's cool. And I mean, not a lot of people would actually, they would, I mean, that's the way to get that information. But I think a lot of people would actually go to the trouble of actually doing that. That's cool.
Well, and
that's great.
You know, the groups that responded, they're super generous with their time. A lot of them have continued to stay engaged. Like there was a bunch of them that actually pre-purchased the product before we went out and raised a small seed round. So it just like the problem statement resonated. They got it. And now, you know, we're in the phase where we're working our tails off to make sure we can deliver on the promise.
So what phase are you actually in right now?
Good question. So we launched our MVP last October. The next iteration we launched at the end of April. Onboarding customers, early feedback. Right now we're just beating up the product. Like, how do we get it to answer questions more accurately? You know, there's a lot of AI stuff out there right now. So the big difference is Chief is a machine learning platform. So it's classical AI, where you get a lot of people who are doing like generative AI wrappers. And that's not what we're doing.
Right.
So we're in the phase where we're A/B testing, go-to-market messaging, seeing what resonates, what they click on, where they dive in, where they convert, where they don't convert. And then just, you know, this is an ongoing, it never ends, but like refining product experience. How do we make sure that, you know, the product delivers the value that we're selling? So
are there people using it right now? Like beta testing?
Yeah. We have 7 customers onboarded. We've got, you know, a whole bunch in the backlog that we're slowly ingesting their data and training the platform and getting them on and using.
So just briefly describe who would be using this and what would they be using it for, just for listeners to get an understanding as like, why would I bring Chief on?
Yeah. So the initial user set it's a RevOps user set. So you think about, there's a lot of talk about agents right now, like the chief agent is your sales ops manager. It's the thing that's watching every interaction, checking to see, you know, and identifying like, hey, Bill's pipeline coverage just dropped below 4 times where it needs to be. And we know that Bill needs 4 times, his close rate's 22%. So we need 4 times his quota for it to hit that. His sales cycle is 72 days. Average deal size is 46,000. Based on all this, we know he's going to miss his number in November if something doesn't change. But today, if he increases prospecting, which is Bill's most effective form of pipeline generation, and he increases calls from 60 to 80 per day for the next 3 weeks, based on his conversion rates, we can get him back to a place where he's going to hit his number. And then the reason we call it chief is because it acts like a chief of staff. And do you want to assign Bill and manage him towards this outcome? So the ideal customer is like a VP of sales, CRO, head of sales at a company doing between at least 5 million. We like to shoot for 10 to 100. Like our customers today range from 20 to 300 million in ARR. But it's constantly scanning your data sets to identify risks. It'll go in and act as like the data hygiene, you know, analyst and be like, hey, you forgot to fill out this CRM field. You pushed the close date twice. When that happens, deals tend to not close. You should engage in a senior leader with their senior leader to get things back on track. So it's learning from everything that's happened in your business historically.
That's pretty cool.
And working to improve rev ops and rev performance.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So it's rolling out, and what's the now you've had your finger in the marketing pie in all of your ventures, because you actually did marketing in school too. So are you always playing a part in that in every step of the way?
I'd say my centers of excellence are go to market. It's been fun because it's been a long time since I've done the marketing side. As we grew at Chief, I worked myself out of that job. So it's been fun to relearn what the playbook looks like. The playbook I used to scale Chief in the early days is totally different. We're seeing good reactions and responses to the tactics we're using today on that. But my centers of excellence are like enterprise sales, go to market, like demand gen, and early product validation, like early product user experience, like defining the product and helping the team see the vision there. I'm not technical by background, so I have to bring a lot smarter people around the table to actually build it. But that's where I'm spending most of my time, is just go to market, learning from the customer. Like I'm having as many market conversations as we can to learn and iterate.
And are they finding that this is sort of this is something that they can't find anywhere else at the moment?
We're not, the real difference is the predictive and proactive piece. Like what a lot of the competitors we see out there are just RAG-based systems where you have ChatGPT wrapped around a document to simplify it. ChatGPT can give you an answer of like, what color is this wall? Sure. But asking ChatGPT to forecast where you're going to end up in 9 months based on your current pipeline, it'll give you an answer and it'll be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not.
It'll just guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we show people what it can do, they immediately get it. Like they're like, well, can you actually do this? And we'll ingest a data set for them and show them the outcomes. And so the attach rate's really, really high. Like we have more customers getting ready to onboard than we have capacity to onboard right now, which is a great problem to have.
That's a good problem. I
tell my team, I'm like, our job, like the problems never go away. They just get better. So like, the question we'll ask every 90 days is, are we solving better problems in each of our functional departments than we were 90 days ago? If the answer is yes, congratulations, well done. If the answer is no, why not? Like, why aren't we solving? What haven't we learned that has given us the right to solve a better problem? 90 days ago, we were solving pre-revenue problems. Today, we're solving onboarding velocity problems, which is a better problem in my experience.
And this product's suitable for almost any industry too, right?
Yeah. I mean, as I look at, in the back of my mind, if it hadn't worked in the markets we're looking at, my thought was we could go to education and do predictive analytics on student dropouts. Like in higher education specifically, we could go to healthcare and look at readmission problems, because there are data points that would indicate before a patient leaves an exam room or a hospital bed, like if these things have or haven't happened, you are going to see that patient again, and it is an extremely expensive problem. So there are, like in fintech, there are predictive elements where you can say, we know this person isn't going to pay their bill if you wait till this point to remind them. But if you do it now, your payment rates go way up. So there are acute specific problems across various verticals that we've kind of held in the back of our back pocket to be like, hey, if we need to get more specific than we already are, here's where we should go. Test the value prop.
Awesome. So anybody stepping into your shoes or working their way in anywhere throughout your trajectory of your career any advice or resources that you would advise them to tap into along the way? I mean, obviously the executive coach is great advice, and you're still seeing an executive coach. You've never actually given that up, from what I understand. And I've heard that before too. Any other sort of feedback or input for someone walking in your shoes?
Such a head game. Like, figure out what your morning ritual is, or your weekly ritual, or whatever it else is that helps get you centered. Because like, really, I believe, like, as I've looked at various companies, like, your ability to have impact is directly correlated to your pain tolerance. And like I said earlier, like, your ability to learn. Most of us can do those two things. It's just like, what are you willing to give up? It's how do you keep your head on straight, and like, reframe how you see challenges and opportunities. And it is like 100%. I compare business building to like a professional sport, right? Depending on where you want to play the game requires different levels of skills. If you look at the greatest players in the world, they're constantly learning, iterating, challenging. I mean, if you ever watched the documentary on Tiger Woods, like the transformation he went through, where he broke down his entire game, like built, put on, it was like 30 or 40 pounds of muscle, and redefined his swing. Like, doing that after you're at the top of your game.
At the top of your game, yeah.
That's wild. Like, it's a totally different mindset that's required. And so I think it's just understanding, like, where do you want to go? And are you willing to go through the pain required to get there? And if you are,
and
like,
pushing yourself out of your comfort zones too, right? Because there is a point when you're in our career paths, you get to a point where it's like, well, I'm really comfortable where I'm at. I know what I'm doing. I could do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
And then, but then, you almost have to like push yourself out of that spot, because otherwise that's where you'll just stay. And there's no growth when you're at that point.
This sounds so, I feel like you hear this a lot, but like, do something you really love. Like, I love building businesses. I learned over the course of 9 years that I didn't love healthcare. I still loved building businesses. And so I think if you're doing something that really gets you out of bed in the morning, like, you're okay with, it's okay. Like, the discomfort's okay. You're like, yeah, this is worth it, because I know there's something on the other side of this that makes me 10 times better.
The love you have for building businesses, is it the love of the building the business, or what is the part of it that you love? Is it the thrill? I mean, because there's always problems to solve. There's always obstacles in the way. It's not like it's a smooth ride, like, what is it about that part of it? Is it the thrill of resolving those problems? Is it the thrill of getting through the adversity?
I think there's two pieces. One is the growth that comes through it, and I guess the being challenged and growing from that challenge, solving a problem. And two is seeing the impact that the solution has. It's really about, like, I don't have a lot of hobbies, and I used to wonder why. And it's because for most things, as soon as I feel like I'm halfway competent, I'm like, okay, I understand how this works now, and I'm bored. Right. But with business,
actually, I can relate to that. Actually,
everything's always changing with business.
Yeah.
Everything. The market's changing. Your customers' requirements are changing. The business itself is changing. And so there's, like, I can count on, 2 or 3 fingers the amount of times growing eVisit that I felt like I had things figured out. And it never lasted for more than 2 or 3 weeks. It was like, yeah, okay, we got this. This is easy. And then something would happen, like, this isn't that easy. Nothing is, in my experience, like, nothing worth doing really is. And so it's, make sure you love it, because it's not going to be easy. And so, like, choosing something that you're, like, deeply passionate about, which I didn't really understand. Frankly, I hear that all the time. I'd be like, okay, like, but if you really care about the problem, there's like not a lot you'll go through any amount of pain required to solve it.
Amazing. Well, we just blew through an hour.
That was fun.
That was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where can people find out more about Chief?
Getchief.com, GET chief.com. And then you can follow me or the team on LinkedIn, or I'm starting to get more active on X, and the plan is to get more active on Instagram, just to share more about Chief and what we're up to. But the best place is our website, getchief.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Bret, for spending an hour with me. I really appreciate it. It's been it went really fast. It was an awesome conversation, and inspiring story. So
I appreciate
I'm sure everyone will have enjoyed listening to you talk. So
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, we could have just kept right on talking. That was a great chat. Super inspired by Bret's story. He's definitely a founder, a builder, and who has tapped into his early experiences that have certainly helped him prepare for the many challenges of building in healthcare and tech. His story is super powerful and a reminder that resilience is discovered in the hardest moments, and that surrounding yourself with the right people is just as important as the product you're building. So he's going to put those leadership skills to test once again with his newest venture, Chief. So watch for that and go check it out on his website. It'll be exciting to see where he takes it in the coming months. So I hope you found this episode valuable. Please subscribe and share it, and join us again for another episode. Please stay healthy, and we'll see you again soon.